guys ready. She's flown up here all the way from Southern California to be here with us. She's actually forged change in her area and actually got a turnabout with her local water district. And I'll let Michael introduce her.
So again, we have a few minutes. We're going to have our one of our keynotes, again, solution-based and about her victories of what she's been doing with non-toxic communities. Then we're going to have a little recess and come back and do our roundtable. Where do we go from here? Quick shout out to Practical Permaculture Institute. All the stuff you're hearing about permaculture and water catchment. Cathay Fish teaches about this all the time. A shout out to Sierra Streams, who is working to do restoration work on the watershed. We're trying to bring all of these players together, so there's no question that's unanswered. We have the resources and the knowledge here in our community. We're just trying to bring these pieces together. So on that, a nice round of applause. She was potentially going to have to cancel because of a family emergency, but she showed up. She got on a plane. She flew here this morning. She was picked up from Jessica Denning, and she's done a lot of effort to be here. And in her work, I want to introduce another mom superhero, another powerful woman in the movement from non-toxic communities, Kathleen Hollow.
Hello, everyone. My name's Kathleen Hollow. I am a mother from Irvine, California, in Orange County. And I started to get interested in all of these kinds of issues when I was looking for a solution for my kids. They had autoimmune issues, and I wanted to look to diet as part of the solution. And I ended up meeting farmers from the Midwest, and they actually told me what they were doing. And I was horrified by the farming techniques, and because so many of the crops in the U.S. are GMO crops, and so many are either Roundup ready or they're sprayed with Roundup just before harvest to speed up the harvest to make them ready for selling so that they can plant another crop sooner. It's like what Sue was talking about, that they're trying to speed up the harvesting process and get more crops planted. I learned about that, and I really started looking into Roundup and what it does. And we changed our diet in our home. We went to organic foods, and I started telling everyone about what I was learning. I was already very active in my community. I am not a natural activist. I'm an art historian. I like museums and teaching, and my background is in that. I went to USC, studied to be a curator. So this is way off the path for me, but I just kind of fell into it. And once you start looking into this and you start learning about it, you become motivated because it's so striking what's going on and how much people don't know about these things. So I started talking to all my friends. I was on the board at the Performing Arts Center in Orange County, and I was PTA board member for all the districts, like the city board for the PTA. And I was running the arts department with my friend and trying to get more arts programs into the schools. And then when my term ran out, there was a space for the position of health and safety advisor, chair of health and safety. And so everyone kind of pointed to me and said, well, Kathleen, you've been talking about all these things, so why don't you do that? And that was kind of the beginning. And I started bringing in speakers and bringing in scientific documentation about Roundup, about glyphosate. We actually had Dr. Pero, the author you were talking about, brilliant pediatrician. What's Making Our Children Sick is her new book that she's done together with Vincent Adams, who's a doctor at University of San Francisco. And she came, I had the farmer come, Howard Vlieger come, and I brought more documentation and more letters from various retired governmental scientists. Every month we would meet, I would have more information for all the PTA presidents and the board. And at the end of my tenure, I asked if we could have a vote and ask to have toxic pesticides banned from our district. Not actually banned, that's not actually the word, but we asked the school board to stop applying toxic pesticides near our children. And all the presidents agreed. We all voted on it, they agreed. So I went forward to the school board and I asked them, and they already knew me because I was also on the parents fundraising board for the district, Irvine Public Schools Foundation. And we raised money for, I had a project raising money for additional school nurses and music, and my husband and I were very big supporters of the district. We made a lot of donations, and it's a lovely district that we're fortunate enough to be a part of. It's very close-knit, it's very education-centered, it's very international, and for public schools, I think they have a pretty good formula going down there. And the really important thing about Irvine is that the city is very closely connected to the schools. The school district and the city managers and the city council work very closely together to create this community in Irvine that's very tight. And our schools are connected to the city parks, and they share kind of the same terrain. So once I had approached the school district, and they finally very kindly agreed to figure out a non-toxic policy for our city, or for our school district. I then got together with some other parents from Irvine, and we went to the city council, and we said, well, the school district is doing this. We think you should do it too, because the parks are connected to the schools. So that's kind of how we got the school district and the city council. But I have to say that there's a special mentality in our community that the schools and the city are so closely intertwined. That's kind of how that happened. We have leaders who are very conscientious, and when we first approached them, they kind of had very little idea of what I was talking about or about what we were talking about. So there was a lot of education involved. All of the scientist letters and all of the information that I was giving to the PTA presidents, I copied the superintendent so that he knew everything that was going on. I was talking to him about everything. Everyone was very well informed. The school nurses, I kept them informed, and they knew about a lot of this information. So when we started our group, my hope was that if we succeeded, that I could help, or that we could help other groups across the nation do the same thing. And that's my hope. My hope is that some of you here will be inspired to form your own groups and your own communities and get this going where you live. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how we did it kind of in the specifics. But if you want more information, you can go to our website, which is Non-Toxic Communities. We have a Facebook page, and we also have a website. And our friend Jessica has very kindly arranged for us to have a grant. So we're going to be upgrading our website, which is very exciting. And we will put all of the educational materials and all kinds of things there that you might need to bring about positive change in your neighborhoods too. So our slogan, my husband came up with this, was, let's make Irvine truly the safest for the smallest among us. And that was very important because our city's slogan was America's safest city. So we took that, my husband took that, and he said, well, let's make sure it's the safest city all the way around. And the city leaders agreed with us. So luckily that was a good slogan. But if you can tune into the ideals of your own community or your own town, I think that will help you to work in tandem with leaders. So to start out, I would say get a group together. Get a group together. I have friends who are doing this all by themselves in their towns, and that's wonderful, but it's a lot harder. What we did was we formed a group. Even I had a group when I was kind of alone. My group was the PTA, right? So get involved with clubs that are already formed, or groups that are already formed who might be interested in these things. The PTA, of course, is interested in children's safety. Some PTAs are more receptive than others, but once I had the speakers come in, they were so reputable and so well educated that the presidents realized that this was really an important issue and truly something that should be a concern. So find a group, get a team together. Our team in Irvine, when we went to approach the city, we had a really special group of people. We had myself, I had the experience with different groups we could approach. In the end, I got the grant from Beyond Pesticides. I knew we could bring them in. I knew they could offer the training, so I kind of had the answers from that point of view. I had the science and the contacts for that. We had one gal who did a lot of marketing. She was very serious. She'd come from a career in the business world, so she was in charge of sort of branding and marketing. We had another gal who had done public relations for the Irvine company, so she was used to connecting with journalists and getting press. So let's see. And the gentleman we brought on board had experience with City Hall and city management, so he knew how to set up meetings and who to contact. So if you can find a group where everyone has a skill that they might be able to contribute, it would be really helpful for you. The stronger the team, the better. And then find supportive community leaders. Feel them out. You might have one person on your city council who is going through, maybe they had cancer or someone else in their family has cancer or autism. So many of us sadly know people who are going through certain kinds of health crises, and almost everyone knows even a kid down the street who has an issue. So kind of feel out your city council members. If you have anyone who's sympathetic, that really helps you to kind of get a foot in the door. Take pictures and gather documentation. When you see people spraying around the town, spraying Roundup or doing whatever they're doing, I had pictures of kids in the front of school when school would let out. They post those little yellow warning signs when they spray. They need to do that by law if they're going to spray something that's toxic. So they'd put the signs, and then the pictures I had were of the kids sitting in the planter right by the sign, digging in the dirt with their hands. And all the parents are standing around chatting, and I would see this all the time. So I said, you know what, I have to take a picture of that because no one's noticing, right? And then those kids, what are they going to do? They're going to get in the car, and they're going to have a snack, and no one's going to wash their hands. So I thought this is really like something we need to note. But also, the guys spraying around the neighborhood and so on, just sort of raising awareness and kind of documenting what's going on. And we contacted our school district and we contacted our city. By law, they need to provide you with what products they're applying, the quantities, and I believe we found out when they were applying them. And when you get these documents back, it's pretty eye-opening because they're really using a lot of product. And it's like, oh my gosh, holy smokes. So it sort of motivates you a little more, but it's very good to have that documentation to know what their standard use is. I had a relationship with the maintenance guys. I met with them for over 2 years about these issues before the change came in Irvine. I like to think that it's not going to take other groups that long because I think that there's now a trend and there's awareness, there's more awareness, especially since the school groundskeeper won the lawsuit against Monsanto. I think we tend to pay attention to numbers, and it was all over Bloomberg and Yahoo and kind of made the mainstream press. So I think that there is a lot more awareness, but I actually had a good relationship with our maintenance guys who I'm sure in the beginning thought I was nuts. I brought in a crop expert one day to meet with them and tell them about how it's truly dangerous, what you're working with. And I brought in all kinds of people. And then I bring them like organic cookies and cakes, and I'd say it's organic, and I just, I actually loved the guys, even though they were kind of resisting me. We had a good relationship. We had really good people working in the department, and after a while, I think they finally started to listen a little more to me, but it took time, and you have to be patient. Let's see, gather documentation, branding. If you go through non-toxic communities, you wouldn't have to worry about that because we have a logo and we have branding and we have materials. We will give you everything, but we would support you if you wanted to come up with your own branding or your own logo. If you wanted to change it or do your own thing, you can pick and choose what you want from our organization. And there are other good organizations out there doing this. There's my old group, Non-Toxic Irvine, they continue to be based in Irvine, and I'm working with non-toxic communities more on a national scale. But there's Moms Across America, who you can contact. So there are different groups sprouting up for guidance, but my group is Non-Toxic Communities. Make a formal request on a petition. We circulated a change.org petition around our town, and parents forwarded it. One parent would sign it, and they'd tell their friends about it, and more would sign it. And every time we got a signature on our petition asking for a non-toxic policy in Irvine, the messages were sent directly to our city council members, so that with each signature, they were pinged. So by the time we wanted to meet with them, I think we had around 700 signatures. And so they knew who we were, they knew what we were about, and then we went into meetings with them. We had meetings outside of the city council meeting. We had personal meetings where we came in with our binders. We had binders like really thick binders full of all the science. And there's more science, sadly, coming out every week or every month. I get more information in my inbox. I mean, and these are studies from like Harvard, NYU, I mean, very reputable universities. And the more professors are studying what tiny amounts of these chemicals can do to our kids and to their grandkids and great grandkids, the more concerning it gets to be. And in the end, all the science that these epidemiologists or endocrinologists are coming out with is way ahead of where our governmental agencies are. So the latest science says we should be alarmed and we should stop using these products around our kids. So bring binders, bring science. We also brought scientists with us to the meetings with the city council members so that if they had questions, they could be immediately answered. We had 2 UCI professors who helped us, but if you can find local scientists or professors that will go with you to the meeting, it's really handy to have all questions answered right on the spot. Create a social media presence. Facebook page, Twitter, Nextdoor. I don't know if you use Nextdoor up here, but Nextdoor is a great way to spread the word and try and get other people to join in with you, show their support. Instagram, if you want to look for youth, Instagram, Snapchat. If you have someone who can handle that kind of social media, it's really helpful to get the word out and grow your group. Develop a relationship with journalists. In our particular case, we had 1 or 2 journalists who were consistently there to support us. So they went to the city council meeting or they went to tour the school campuses. When we spoke with principals, we would get press about this, that we were doing this and this, why we were doing it and our story. And that helps also to get the word out and to get city councilors to listen to you, council members. Once you have the critical mass, then you can go in, like I said, for the smaller meetings. But then after that, you would want to get your group to go to a city council meeting so that they can see how many people are supporting what you're asking for. When we went, we had a really big crowd. We had, of course, all of us. We brought our kids. Our kids spoke to the mayor and the city council. One of the mothers in our group, her child was fighting cancer, so she had a lot of kids come in who had either recovered from cancer or were still going through treatment, and parents as well. So it sort of raised awareness for our city council, and we actually did research. This mother did, and she found out there was kind of a cluster in our town. There was a higher than normal rate. One of my sons lost one of his baseball teammates to cancer at 12. So these kinds of stories and this kind of awareness makes people think twice about whether they should listen to you or not. Always dress professionally. Always make a very clean presentation as if you were going in for a bank loan. They're dressed in their business clothes, so you should be dressed in your professional clothing as well. Like I said, take binders. We had binders, so take binders with scientific studies. We have a lot of information available on our website, but you can also go to Beyond Pesticides or also PANA in California. A lot of you are probably familiar with those organizations. They will give you a lot of the scientific studies, and you can just put them in a binder and categorize them, and it just helps to have science behind you. And we use a little bit of leverage, too. We brought up to the city, well, the schools are already doing it. So then the city was like, oh, well, if they're going to do it, because nobody wants to be first to try it. People are very afraid that it will fail. They're afraid it's too expensive. They've been told a lot of things by people who are sort of pro-pesticide. And it helps to tell them someone else has done it before, someone else is doing it, and somebody near you has already made the decision. So what are you going to do? It kind of helps to make them feel like they're not the only ones. And when I went to the schools for the PTA, I said Harvard is doing it. They've been doing it for years, organic landscaping. I talked to them about all the schools in the state of Connecticut, K through 8. They have no toxins on their fields where the kids play. State of New York, K through 12. For years, California is so far behind on this. And it was really eye-opening for them to learn that, but also to hear that other leaders in other schools had made this decision and it wasn't a mistake, that it could be successful and the grounds would still look very nice. They're very worried about that, you know, and you have to be sympathetic to that. Everybody wants it to look nice. Am I doing okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you
okay.
ready to field some questions, or do you have?
I have a couple more things to
Okay,
say,
great.
and then yes. Okay, so so provide the solutions, provide training. You can't go in and just complain and say, we don't like you applying these things, please stop. Because they'll throw up their hands and they'll say, well, what do we do? And they don't know, because all the maintenance guys have been trained by the chemical dealers. And so they think, and they've been told that that's the only way to do it, it's the cheapest way to do it, and they'll fail if they try organic. And you have to kind of get past those myths and tell them that it's not true. In Irvine, we have been organic for 2 years and everything looks great. In fact, our fields have improved. I wish I could show you pictures, but we used to have very hard sort of dirt patches, you know, interspersed with the grass. None of that now. The soil is soft. Some of the people, maybe Sue, or I can't remember who was talking about the soil being alive. Our soil is now spongy. It's not hard when the kids fall or run. They can get a better grip. My kids love it. They love it, and it looks better. Yeah, it's amazing. So we have saved on it cost, initially the first year, there was a bump in cost of about only 5%. But that was because they were kind of trying new things, and they might not have had to do all that, but they were, and so it bumped up about 5%. But they saved so much on water because the soil is now holding the water. They saved so much on water, they ended up not paying any more. It did not cost any more to switch the system. And now that it's going and the ground is healthy and the soil biology is going, it's pushing out the weeds by itself. Now they're starting to have a decrease in costs. And this has been proven before. Beyond Pesticides did a 5-year study with a high school in Massachusetts, and their costs went down, just like is happening in Irvine. So it's actually money saving. So it's a big deal. So, and we have homeowners associations now on board. So we have homeowners associations, and the whole city is now gone non-toxic. In fact, UCI was sort of a holdout, but the other day I was driving through campus and there was a guy with a backpack, and on the back, instead of it saying Roundup, it said organic. Wow. I took a picture of that because that was on UCI's campus, and the UC schools, you know, they were the kind of the last to decide to do it. But it makes you feel so good. I can't tell you as a parent how good it makes me feel and how lucky I feel when my kid is out there in the baseball field and I don't have to wonder about what they sprayed this morning or yesterday or a week ago. And, you know, conversely, when our team plays in other cities, I sit there and I kind of think about it. I'm like, gosh, I wish they were organic too. But it's happening. It's spreading. We have neighboring towns going and doing it. And I hope some of you will be inspired to become leaders. And please come to non-toxic communities. We will be in touch with you. We will give you the tools. We will talk to you. And I encourage you all to go back to your towns and communities and do the same thing. So that's all. That's kind of a sticking point. When you talk about this, you can't touch that. You can't touch agriculture. But in the city will not try to regulate agriculture. That's its own independent thing, and the farmers will make a fuss if you try to tell them what to do. So that's kind of off the table. You don't do that. However, the awareness in our town of Irvine of organics being more desirable and so on is causing the farmers who are raising strawberries and other produce to raise more organic, and they have farm stands around town and it says organic. It's proudly displayed. So it's sort of all awareness. It sort of connects. But I will say the one thing is when we were doing this, I did not discuss GMOs at all. Stay focused. Your focus is children and the community's pesticide exposure. That's it. They can know that you eat organic, but don't cross over into the GMO subject. Stay focused. This is about exposure in our community.
That's kind of what ARC is talking about, is becoming this platform to be able to bring us together and attack these issues one at a time in a manner that's actually orchestrated and focused. Because if we keep running around dealing with every individual issue, we're just kind of spinning our wheels at a very slow pace. Now, I'm curious, we have three agencies up here spraying, PG&E, Caltrans, and NID. How many agencies did you have in your local area that you confronted with this?
That's a really good question, because we didn't work on that level at all. That would be, I imagine, a state level. And I am working on those things now. I've kept working, and I am trying to get some traction at the state level. But I think that that's a different battle. We only dealt with the school district and the city council. So anything the city council controlled and anything the school district controlled. Caltrans and those other outfits would be outside of that realm. I'm not saying don't go for it, but it's a separate project.
Right, and it's one victory at a time, and I think the NID victory is something that we locally can overcome and kind of build some much needed confidence in our people. Right now, people don't feel confident that they can, and they feel worn down. And again, if we can have a win on one small issue, as Dr. Luther King said, pick a small issue that you know you can win.
Yes.
And build the confidence in the followers, and then move on to the next issue one step at a time. Yes. And so together we can do this. Are there any other questions while we're standing here from anybody? No. Okay, if not, then let's give a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.